movie footage used in any of the Slasher Scotty videos, including the body count, the rankings, and the top 10 videos, are entirely owned by the copyright holders. Slasher Scotty makes no claim of ownership and simply uses the footage for purposes of education, commentary, and criticism under the Fair Use Act.
Welcome everyone to the Body Count, where we tally up all of your favorite kills for all of your favorite horror movies. I am your host, you know who I am, Slasher Scotty, and before we go into what this week's episode is about, I just want to tell you something. This episode of the Body Count is being sponsored by our amazing sponsor, the Fairy Squad Princesses, which is a preteen book series that is written by and authored by author Marcus Motra. Now I get it, it's not horror based, who cares? But they are our amazing sponsor today, so show your love and appreciation to Marcus and his book series and pick up your copy today on Amazon. The links are in the description below. And the book series is about 4 fairies that try to save the world from evil forces. And it is based closely on the Winx Club and yes, even Sailor Moon. Order your copy today of all 3 books, and the 4th book is set to release later this year. Now that we got the sponsors out and out of the way for this episode is going to be covering the producer's cut of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers is the last story in the arc about the Curse of Thorn. It is also the last film in the Jamie Lloyd timeline of the franchise. It dives heavily into the mythology of Michael Myers and, what exactly makes him evil, and why this Curse of Thorn is so important to the evil behind Michael Myers himself. The producer's cut of the film dives even more heavily into the cult that worships Michael Myers, and it gives even more backstory to make sense of the story arc for the Curse of Thorn, with an entirely different ending to a totally different death of, a couple of main characters here and there, and everything else in between. The producer's cut, which was created due to a much better version of the story being told within the film, as well as, the Weinstein family really didn't want they really wanted the original theatrical version to be the final copy of the film. So to please all parties involved, why not create 2 different versions of the film? The theatrical version and the producer's cut. So what bodies were the same in the theatrical version and the producer's cut of the film? And which ones were a little different? Well, don't just ask me. Let me just go ahead and show you by tallying up all of these bodies. This film started out with a 15-year-old Jamie Lloyd pleading, gasping and screaming, and she was wheeled on a stretcher down a long underground corridor by masked physicians. She was eventually revealed to be in the basement of the Smith's Grove Sanitarium. She was hallucinating that her crazed, psycho serial killer uncle, Michael Myers, was terrorizing her with a large butcher knife. The trench-coated man in black was also visible. Jamie was laid on her back with her arms and legs tied, surrounded by a candlelit altar with burning torches during a mysterious ceremony of cultists. She then was seen to be in labor, delivering a baby. The newborn baby boy was immediately handed over to the man in black. Then we were given a voiceover by a later identified Tommy Doyle, as we were presented with a title card. Since the previous film, the man in black, over the previous 6 years, had kidnapped and cared for both Michael Myers and Jamie Lloyd, during which she was impregnated by an unknown man. We get a flashback of what happened on October 31st, 1989, where Michael Myers was taken in a van by unknown abductors, whereas Jamie was then hearing a voice to come to some mysterious person and was also abducted. We then see the explosion that led everyone to believe that Jamie and Michael have been dead over the past 6 years at the police station. On Halloween Eve in 1995, she delivered a male baby marked on its stomach in blood with the rune symbol and was used on the altar in a ritual. Later that night, Jamie was rescued by Nurse Mary and aided in an escape to save her baby. Jamie feared that she wouldn't be allowed to keep the baby. When Mary left her at the exit, masked Michael Myers grabbed Mary by the throat, choked her, picked her up, and impaled the back of her skull into a protruding, sharp metal spike high on the wall, adding Mary as our first victim of this episode to the body count. With Michael in pursuit, Jamie fled to a nearby road where she took the driver's seat of a vacated truck. The angry, drunken truck driver yelled at her. Michael caught up to them and ended up violently twisting around and snapping the neck of this motorist, adding him to the body count. She then drove off in the stolen truck into a rainy, thundery night. In Haddonfield, Illinois, the old Myers home had been sold by Strode Realty to the Strode family. The young boy Danny Strode, who slept in Michael Myers' bedroom, was experiencing nightmares of a knife-wielding voice man. He was comforted by his single mother, Kara, who is the cousin of Laurie Strode. The broadcast of a WKNB radio show called Back Talk, which was hosted by shock jock Barry Sims, was airing a special Halloween edition of its show on Halloween Eve. Sims announced that their next night's show would be broadcast live from Haddonfield at the Halloween Harvest Fair, where Halloween had been banned since 1989. Living directly across the street from the Strode house on the second floor of a boarding house is a grown-up Tommy Doyle, who was using a camera telephoto lens to spy on the Strodes. What a creeper! 25-year-old Tommy phoned the talk radio show explaining how he saw Michael Myers when he was 8 years old. He considered himself one of the lucky ones. The just very much retired Dr. Loomis, Michael's psychiatrist, was also listening into the show in his isolated country home. He was joined by Dr. Terrence Wynn, an old friend and colleague, for a drink. You remember Dr. Wynn, don't ya? He had a small scene on Michael not knowing how to drive in the original 1978 film. That Dr. Wynn, yeah? Me neither. Wynn stressed that he had chosen Loomis to return to Smith's Grove Sanitarium. Loomis refused, claiming that he had buried the ghosts in the manuscript. Jamie drove up to the local bus depot as she listened in on the broadcast over the PA system inside the darkened and empty terminal. Another female caller from Haddonfield Junior College spoke about a planned Halloween rally and the radio broadcast on the campus to revitalize the town after 6 years of banned celebrations. From the depot payphone, Jamie called the 1-800-YOU-SUCK number to the radio station, and as Loomis and Tommy both listened, they heard Jamie weeping and warning of Myers' imminent return. She asked for help mentioning Dr. Loomis by name. She was, unfortunately, as only a wacko by Barry. Jamie's uncle relentlessly pursued her into the bus depot's bathroom, outside to her truck, and then followed her in a stolen van. After running her off the road near an old barn in the Haddonfield area where she crashed the truck into a pile of pumpkins, he followed her into the barn, stabbed her with his knife in the stomach, and she fell to the floor unconscious. I'm not adding her to the body count yet, though, as her death is different in the producer's cut than it is in the theatrical version of the film. Michael then only found the baby's blanket inside the stolen truck. The next day it is Halloween in Haddonfield. We are introduced to all of the members of the troubling and dysfunctional Strode family, including the struggling single mother and red-haired college student Kara Strode, along with her 6-year-old son Danny, who had both returned to live with her parents in the household after being away for 5 years. Kara's parents included a caring mother named Deborah and an extremely abusive father named John, who ends up calling Danny a bastard boy. He hates Kara for some unknown reason. He believed she had brought bad luck to the household. Also, there was Kara's teenage brother named Tim, Danny's uncle. After John slapped his daughter, Danny heard a voice and saw a vision of Michael Myers, who said, "Kill for him," and ended up putting a knife to his grandfather's stomach. After all this happened, we get introduced to Tim's girlfriend, whose name is Beth. Beth lived across the hall from Tommy Doyle in the boarding house across the street from the Strode house. The boarding house is managed by the elderly and hard-of-hearing lady named Mrs. Blankenship. At the Smith's Grove Sanitarium, Dr. Wynn and Dr. Loomis learned that Jamie Lloyd's body had been discovered near Haddonfield. The ruined symbol, or mark, tattooed on Michael's wrist and on the stomach of the baby was seen at the crime scene, painted or burned in black bales of hay. Dr. Loomis interpreted, "It's his mark. He's come home." Dr. Wynn and Dr. Loomis are seen at the barn where Jamie was stabbed, and it was revealed that she's still alive. She ended up being taken away to the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital to get treatment from her wounds that Michael gave her, as we are introduced to the new sheriff of Haddonfield, who turns out to be a nothing character, since, well, he's never seen again in the theatrical or the producer cuts of the film. This is one of the big differences between the producer's cut and the theatrical version of the film: the survival of Jamie Lloyd. Meanwhile, Tommy Doyle listened intently to his reel-to-reel tape recording of Jamie's radio interview and figured out that the call came from the bus depot. Blood droppings from the payphone booth led to the downstairs restroom, where he found Jamie's crying baby in the wooden cabinet. Wait, what? How did that baby survive in such poor conditions by being stowed away in a cabinet, probably full of feces and malnourished? I get wanting to protect him from Michael, but still, if no one found the baby would be as good as dead. Tommy then took the infant with him so he can protect and care for him. The imaginative young Danny Strode had drawn a prophetic picture of the Strode's mommy, uncle, grandpa, and grandma, each of them having bloody knives sticking out of them in a picture as they stood next to a black object named Thorn. In the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital's emergency room, Tommy was carrying Jamie's baby when he ran into Dr. Loomis and introduced himself. See, now it all makes sense why Dr. Loomis is in the hospital, because he's there due to Jamie surviving the attack from Michael. Another difference from the theatrical version is Jamie's surgery. Yes, she survived Michael's attack and is now seen in surgery, where they removed the large knife from her stomach, something that I think should have been done probably before, the whole surgery thing, at least a whole hell of a lot sooner if you ask me. But anyways, Tommy corrected his misconception about Jamie being the last of the Myers bloodline now that Michael had come home. Loomis was told about the Strodes that are now living in the Myers house. Tommy took the baby into his care for protective safekeeping from harm and named him Stephen. When Deborah was in the Strode home struggling with a malfunctioning washing machine in the basement, she then suspected that somebody else was in her house. But it just turned out to be Dr. Loomis. He claimed that he wanted to help the family. He warned her of the violent force inside of the serial killer that contaminated his soul. He then reassured her that he would return to his childhood home as it was sacred to him due to all the memories that was there. Loomis's tale terrified Deborah with his rantings about the haunted house and all of the terrible things that had happened there, and she then understood that the reason why her husband's brother couldn't sell the house and why they were living there. As she expressed her fears to her husband on the phone and he didn't want any of it, he then looks at a picture of his daughter, which isn't super creepy or anything, and then goes back to the hospital where Jamie is in recovery from surgery, and has a flashback of being wheeled to give birth. It is revealed that Michael is the father of the baby, and he raped his niece and impregnated her so they can create the ultimate evil child. In Jamie's hospital bed, a mysterious guy shows up with a pistol and a silencer on it, shoots her in the head, thus adding Jamie Lloyd to the body count. A totally different version of Jamie's death for sure, and something that kept her in the film a little bit longer. Although her theatrical kill was a lot cooler, her death here made a bit more sense as we ended up getting more backstory on her kidnapping and her pregnancy. Myers then added Deborah Strode to the body count by hacking her up in the backyard with the hatchet, splattering her blood onto the freshly hung laundry that was on the clothesline. Suspecting that the entire Strode family was in danger from Michael, Tommy befriended Danny and led him and Kara back to his boarding house room for safety. Although she thought he was crazy, she became more convinced of his sincerity when she saw that the evidence of his years of collected newspaper clippings about Myers and the murders. He explained about the rune symbols and the meaning of thorn. Take a listen to this, okay? You might want to listen to this.
Among the ancient druids, thorn represented a demon that spread sickness, brought death to hundreds of thousands of people. According to Celtic legend, one child from each tribe was chosen to be inflicted with the curse of thorn, to offer the blood sacrifices of its next of kin on the night of Samhain.
Tommy then warned Kara never to return back to her house. In the boarding house parlor where she was watching the classic film on television, The Phantom of the Opera, Mrs. Blankenship explained the origins of celebrating Halloween to Danny. Then she told Kara that her son could also be hearing the voice, just like Michael Myers, which was revealed that Mrs. Blankenship was babysitting him the night he killed his sister Judith as a boy. She told Kara that the voice told Michael to kill his family. She was implying that Danny, who could also hear a voice, was the next child to be cursed with the thorn if Michael succeeded in killing his entire family. John Strode returned home to an empty house. Suddenly the lights inexplicably extinguished, and he laughingly pondered that it must be the boogeyman. He went to the basement to investigate, as any dumb horror movie character would do, to see why the power is out, and he found bloody sheets inside the loud chugging and leaking washing machine. When he turned around, Michael Myers murdered John by stabbing him in the stomach with a butcher knife, lifting him up and pinning him against the fuse box, electrocuting him, thus adding John to the body count. This is one of the more significant death changes from the theatrical version of the film and in the producer's cut of the film, where in the theatrical version, John becomes frothy at the mouth and his entire head then explodes, where the producer's cut, his kill is more of a PG level type of kill. At the Halloween Harvest Fair, Beth was interviewed by DJ Barry Sims in front of the crowd. After Beth becomes quite assertive, DJ Barry Sims asked him if Beth is this riled up in the sack, quoted as saying,
"I bet she wears crotchless panties and barks like a dog."
The role of Barry Sims was written to be portrayed by Howard Stern, but Stern declined the offer and they ended up with a different actor. If you closely listen to the dialogue written for the role of Barry Sims, it was quite obvious that this role was actually written for Howard Stern himself. I mean, also, fun fact I have to say is that the character Barry Sims was named after Bob Sims, the boyfriend of Linda in the original 1978 film. Maybe there is some relation between the two characters that was never spoken about, huh? Tim was surprised to learn that he lived in the notorious Myers house, once occupied by the most brutal mass murderer in history. As a publicity stunt, Sims promised to move the Shockfest show to the Myers house. Barry walks to his vehicle, and in a much longer take of the scene than in the theatrical version of the film, we see that Barry gets inside the Smiths Grove sanitarium vehicle by mistake, and he's prepared to drive to the Myers house before he was knifed in the chest from behind and was added to the body count. A little girl was under the tree singing about it raining red. It is raining, raining red. And it turns out that Barry's corpse was wrapped in lights and strung up in the tree. Tim and Beth are now back at Tim's house, otherwise known as the Myers house, and Barry no-showed due to being dead and all. Beth then spooked by Tim by recreating the night of the initial murder. They then kissed in the darkened house and then proceeded to make love in Kara's bed while surrounded by candles. After showering and then standing in front of a foggy mirror, Tim had his throat slit with a butcher knife, adding him to the body count. Kara, looking through Tommy's spying camera, sees Beth in her bedroom, from Mrs. Blankenship's house, of course. She then is on the phone with Beth and warns her that someone is behind her. Myers comes up from behind and adds Beth to the body count by repeatedly stabbing her in the back with a knife. Kara then looks down and sees Danny entering the Myers house. Kara races over to the Myers house, and upon entrance, she witnesses her son going up the stairs into the darkness where Myers is lurking. Kara brandishes a fireplace poker and creeps upstairs after Danny. She discovers Tim and Beth's bloody corpses in her bed and then finds Danny in the opposite room. Kara also finds the corpse of her mother, which drops down from a door in the ceiling. She and Danny flee from Myers, with Danny running downstairs while Kara stays upstairs to fend off Michael. She manages to strike Michael in the head with a fireplace poker and sends him tumbling down the stairs. As Kara goes back downstairs to retrieve Danny, Michael comes to life and breaks Kara's ankle. She manages to hit him in the arm with the poker, and Kara and Danny run out of the house and back to the Blankenship's house, where several masked men then appear. The man in black is also there, and it is revealed to be Dr. Wynn. He calls Danny over, who sits on his lap. Tommy and Loomis are grabbed and Kara tries to escape by jumping out of a window after being cornered by cult members at Mrs. Blankenship, who is also revealed to be a part of the cult. Loomis and Tommy are drugged as Kara's knocked out after her jump. Tommy and Loomis awaken after being drugged and find everyone gone, including Kara. We see Kara tied up to a slab for a cult ceremony in the basement of Smith's Grove Sanitarium. They then go to Smith's Grove Sanitarium, where they know Wynn has taken everyone. Tommy and Loomis split up. Loomis confronts Wynn, who credits him for first discovering Michael's evil. He states how Jamie's baby represents a new cycle of it after multiple failures and wants Loomis to join in on his efforts, entering into a dawn of a new age. He then tells Loomis that he was the one to teach Michael how to drive all those years ago. Loomis calls Wynn out on his evil scheme and is knocked unconscious. Meanwhile, Tommy finds Kara when he sneakily comes across the cult ritual. We see the likes of Mrs. Blankenship, Dawn, who was previously seen as Dr. Wynn's secretary, and a bunch of cultists. We then see Michael Myers standing off to the side as an altar boy, and Danny as if he sees dead people with his sixth sense, and Dr. Wynn about to perform the ceremony on a tied-up sacrificial Kara Strode. Tommy sees a spare robe and puts it on so he can fit in amongst the cultists, as Dr. Wynn tells Danny he is the one that will be the next in line to kill in the name of evil, since the Curse of Thorn will be transferred into Danny after Michael's final sacrifice is complete. Kara tries to stop the sacrifice by telling Michael that the baby is his, where Tommy then shows up with a dagger and puts it right to the neck of Dr. Wynn to stop this ritual. Tommy, you are such a buzz killer. No one needs you to be a party pooper at this party, boy. Tommy instructs a cult member to untie Kara, which she does, and then Kara grabs baby Steven. Kara, Tommy, and Danny run down the hallway, similar to that of the theatrical release, just in different wardrobe, which Tommy then finds a bunch of ruins inside the pocket of his Dracula-like robe. Tommy lays out the ruins on the floor in a circle. Then he cuts his hand with the dagger and smears his blood on the floor. Michael grabs Tommy by the throat, to which Tommy shouts out, "Samhain!" Or as they say, Samhain, incorrectly, like a Philistine, which prompts Michael to let Tommy go. Paul Rudd does more of that head-twitching acting we saw a bunch more of in the theatrical version of the film, and then Tommy goes outside and discards the robe as we see Dr. Loomis helping Kara and Danny into the red Jeep. Tommy tells Loomis that the power of the ruins stopped Michael, as we see Michael just standing like an idiot in the circle of ruins. Dr. Wynn comes up to Michael and tells him how he's so disappointed in his impotence. Wynn just doesn't notice that Michael clenches his fist at his side. We then see Tommy asking Dr. Loomis to come with them, to which he states he has unfinished business to attend to. We see Loomis entering Smith's Grove Sanitarium, where he finds Michael lying on the floor in the middle of the ruins. He removes the mask from Michael, and it is revealed to actually be Dr. Wynn instead of Michael. Wynn, just as shocked, tells Loomis that it is his game, and the Curse of Thorn tattoo then appears on Loomis's wrist and to match the one that Michael has. Then we see Loomis scream, which explains the ending of the theatrical cut of the film and when Loomis screams. We then see Michael in the Man in Black costume walking down the Smith's Grove corridor, presumably to kill some more. Wind whistles around the Myers house, causing a jack-o'-lantern's candle on the porch to flicker and extinguish, cutting to black, with a title card reading in memory of Donald Pleasance displayed as we go to the end credits. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, concludes the story arc of not just the Curse of Thorn storyline, but also the storyline Michael has with both Jamie and Dr. Loomis, due to the impending real-life death of Dr. Loomis actor Donald Pleasance. Did the producer's cut of this film add any additional bodies to the body count? Let's find out at the numbers. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers was released on September 29, 1995, and it starred Donald Pleasance, Paul Stephen Rudd, Marianne Hagan, Kim Darby, Bradford English, Keith Bogart, Mariah O'Brien, Mitchell Ryan, J.C. Brandy, Devin Gardner, and George P. Wilbur. There were a total of 8 deaths in the producer's cut of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, with 4 of them being males and 4 of them being females. This is a lot lower than the theatrical cut of the film, and in turn it gives us a half strawberry and a half blueberry pie by the way of a 50-50 split between genders. The Slasher Scotty Gold Ribbon for Coolest Kill was a tough one because all of the kills weren't that cool. with 2 of the coolest kills in the film being changed completely. I'd have to give the gold ribbon by default to Deborah Strode, as I always loved the chase scene and the spraying of blood onto the clean white linens. The Slasher Scotty silver ribbon for a lamest kill would have to be given to Jamie Lloyd because she was first stabbed in the stomach, survived that, and then was shot with a silenced pistol in the head, which was no way to treat and kill off a main character that survived Michael in the past 2 films, despite it being a different actress. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, as there are plenty of videos to come, including interviews with celebrity guests, as well as some amazing rankings videos, top 10s, the SSN, otherwise known as Slasher Scotty News, and of course the body count, where we'll be diving right into Halloween H2O 20 years later. So until next time, I'm Slasher Scotty, and this has been the body count. Be good people.